As my man Eric Sheeler would say, women get married knowing they're going to get divorced. And he said, here's a video proving it. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to show you that men are little bitches. Men and women are involved in this, right? This is Bill Burr. And Bill Burr is the biggest bitch made man ever. Don't worry, we don't need to list all of this, just the first 10 minutes. We'll get into him first. Now, listen to what a typical married man can go through and what Burr's advice was to him, his lay down advice.
Wife came out as asexual after 15 years of marriage.
She wasn't asexual. She was never interested in sex with her husband in the first place, ever. It was a mask she wore to keep him around, and she got tired of him. So she's getting rid of him.
Dear Billy Blue Balls, I've been a fan of yours since Chappelle's show days, but new to the podcast. Last Christmas, my wife came out as asexual. Parentheses, fuck you 2020.
Now, she's not really trying to get rid of him, though. She's just saying you're entirely in servant mode now. That's all it is.
She said sex has always been a chore. She's not doing it anymore, and I can handle it myself from now on.
Why didn't she tell him that in the beginning? You see, when they got married to her, right?
Wow. We talked about options, and she doesn't mind oral a couple times a month, but that didn't last.
That's it. We talked about options. There shouldn't be any option talk. The husband should have said, you lied to me the whole time. You are a fraud. We're splitting up. That's what he should have said. See, this is what the standard man does. He's willing to serve.
Last time we had any kind of intercourse was back in July on our 15th wedding anniversary. She said, I know you're expecting something, so let's get this over with, and proceeded to just lay there.
What?
Wow.
Your sex always disgusted her. She was willing to put up with it. She's willing to lie to your face for 15 years, pal. Right.
September, I was rubbing her back, and she just turned off her table lamp and leaned more into it. I pressed my luck and kissed her on the shoulder. She jumped out of bed and slept on the couch for the next 3 nights.
Wow, she's really disgusted by this guy, right? Really disgusted by him. And she married him, right? She wanted that provider.
I gave it another couple days and said, we need to talk. She said she felt sexually assaulted. Okay, well.
I'm glad she admitted that, because when women talk about sexual assault, they mean a man they didn't like came on to them. There's none of this rape business.
If I was you, I'd go to the luggage store. I'd pick out myself a nice set. I would fucking fill those things and I would just leave. She then accused me of being very selfish because I hadn't checked in on how she's been feeling since her revelation.
Yeah, you see, the marriage is all about the woman, period. It's never been a partnership, ever. You're her servant. That's why she picked you up, right?
This is true, but what is there to check in on? She seems to have found herself while I have basically lost an appendage.
No, she didn't find herself. She was always this way. She's just finally admitting to you what she thought about you. So the husband talking to here, he, of course, is completely bitch made. Just like Burr, right? They're always making excuses for horrendous behavior. This woman is a subhuman. She's a psychopath. She's a narcissist, and she always has been. Yeah, men can't come to terms with that.
She's expecting you to do all of the fucking work, to respect where she is, and she's not even considering the fact that you just found out that she's been living a lie for 15 fucking years of your life?
Not living a lie, telling a lie, telling a lie. See, these guys, they never get the framing right on purpose.
And of course, you have to take her into consideration. Listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to put yourself in her shoes, but if she's not going to do it the other way after she lied to you for 15
Talk about bitch made, Bill Bird. Like, there should not be any olive branches held at this point.
years, then, what are we doing here? Anyways, he said, I mentioned opening up our marriage, and she just shut that down because she claims I would be spending all my free time looking for other women, ignoring our family.
She's right about the first one, looking for other women. Ignoring her family, that is her behavior being projected onto him. She ignores the family. She doesn't care. They have children, by the way, and she doesn't care about what happens to the children. That's it.
She offered me articles about marriage between sexual and asexual partners, and basically the sexual spouse has to live as asexual too, which I find to be very one-sided. As you
See what I'm talking about? She's not really wanting the divorce so much. She wants him to be 100% slave, not servant, slave. She doesn't want him to find any happiness. Also, if she found another woman to pay attention, she knows he would leave her. He'd say, here's a woman who's willing to give me what I want. And it's not her. So she knows. Also, she's against his happiness. What they say, guys, about love. Love is about wanting happiness for your partner. This woman has none of that. So she never loved this guy. So the fact that a guy would go 15 years like this shows you that men know that women don't love them in their heart of hearts. They have to.
should, as she would if it was the other way around. She says, I can leave at any time, and I asked her if she had really thought that through and what it would do to the kids.
Well, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Of course, he's just using the kids as a shield. He really just doesn't want the wife to leave. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe this father cares about his children. He cares about his wife not banging him. That's what he cares about, right? And she doesn't care about the kids, right?
Yeah, this seems like a loophole to get out of the marriage. We have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 5. Her reply was very matter of fact. We've been
11, 9, and 5, they're all youngsters too, right? So she knows she's doing something that may force him out of the marriage. And she doesn't care what it does to the children. She does care about the children, the fact that they're going to be hostages for child support. So maybe that's it. Maybe she wants to boot him out now and say, now it's time for you to leave, pay child support.
married for 10 plus years, so I am entitled to half your retirement, and I'm the primary caregiver, so get out of the house.
Half your retirement. Now, guys get married without even thinking about that. Like, there's one thing about, like, alimony is evil to start with, right? That should have ended in 1960s when women found their second wave independence. But the whole point is that it's going to end someday. They're saying you're a slave for life as a man. Once you said that's what the marriage contract is. It's a slave contract.
I'm not going to lie, I could have strangled her in that moment, but I went for a walk to cool off.
Yeah, you're a typical bitch made man. This woman basically told you your life has ended, and she's the one ending it. And all you're going to do is say, well, I better calm down because I might, anger the person I want to hang around, even though this person is actually subhuman and hates my guts. This guy's a loser and he deserves everything he gets. Married men they get everything they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, she's really coming at you with just no feelings at all.
Well, she never had any dipshit, just like your wife Nia has none for you.
I never thought I would be in this position considering a
I'm wrong about that. Nia has contempt for you. That's a feeling.
separation, and the guilt of what it will do to the kids is killing me. I'm trying not to become resentful, but her my way or the highway mentality really makes that difficult.
I'm not trying to become resentful. Geez. If some guy screwed you over like this, you would put him in his grave or at least have the, self-respect to say you wanted it. This is how bitch made men are to come to the opposite sex. This is why men have no rights. It's not just that women hate them, but men are willing to sell themselves out. This guy has no right to write into Burr, right? Why is he writing in the Burr? Because his family would tell him to just man up, right? His friends would tell him to man up. And Burr's going to do the same thing. So this guy is just finding some outlet to bitch and then go about getting reamed over.
Obviously, I'm not going to force her to do something she doesn't want to do, but I'm only
You're not going to force her to do something she doesn't want to do, but that's 100% what she's going to do to you. It's pathetic.
42 years old. You spent a small fortune on therapy. Let's
Yeah, how is therapy going to fix anything? Is the therapist going to make her like him and want to bang him?
I think hear your thoughts on this.
Why, if he went to therapy, why is he asking Bill Burr? Aren't the therapists the professionals? So obviously the therapist didn't do anything worthwhile. He spent a lot of money to get gaslit, right?
I mean, she's a first ballot Hall of Fame cunt. To just be honest with you, I mean,
Look how much hesitation. Wow.
she has no, the way you're writing this, she has no consideration for your feelings whatsoever and is upset with you that you can't read her mind.
Yeah, she's a narcissist. Typical married relationship between men and women.
She doesn't care that she's been lying to you for 15 years. She doesn't give a fuck about her behavior, what it's going to do to her kids. She's all about herself.
Well, exactly. Right. So she was like this when he married her. That was 15 years. So
And it's not going to get any better. And it seems like she's going to be. What does primary caregiver mean?
it means you're female. That's all it means. That's all it means. Let me just pause it for a minute, guys. Why keep bringing up this important videos? Wives dump their house husbands out of resentment. This video was what? It was about a man who was the primary caregiver. And when they got divorced, the kids went with her. Right? So primary caregiver just means that you are a female. It's an excuse.
Does that mean she makes more money than you?
No, no. You know what it means, dude. She's female, the man pays.
Let me see. I got to get this through. What does primary caregiver mean?
Dude, why is he asking you your opinion? You don't even know what you're talking about.
It's a person assisting an underage child or a sick, elderly, or disabled relative. Any adult can become a primary caregiver.
So you got married to Nia and you don't know anything about your marriage. Of course he doesn't, guys. Because men don't give a shit what the rules are. They just know that the woman said yes. And then they cry once it blows up in their faces.
for a relative in need, regardless of education. Okay, so she's the one taking care of the kids. So I'm entitled to half your retirement. This is what happened. Okay, she lied to herself for a long time
No,
about
no, no, no. She didn't lie to herself. She lied to him. Again, these bitch made men always frame it to give the woman an out. She lied to him. She knew what she felt about this guy the whole time. Burr, you bitch maid.
who she was. Okay, and she went along with what society said. She had to
No, no, you lying sack of crap. Or should you say you coping sack of crap? Society didn't make this woman do shit. She's the evil villainess who made a scheme. She's a fraud. And she suckered some guy in and she towed him along until she finally said, now it's time. He has children that she can use as hostages. They're old enough, but they're still young enough that I can just run off with them and make this guy pay child support. That's what's going on here. So bitch made guys like Bill Burr, of course, are making excuses for this woman.
get married and have kids. And she never
And they actually show this, a woman, help me, God bless you, screw this woman. 95% of the homeless are men. Screw there. So whoever made this video was bad enough doing this.
wanted to do it. All right? And she made that choice, and now she's blaming you. And she's taking no fucking personal responsibility for the fact that she lied to you and started a family with you, and now you have all of this connection.
That's right. He's the one who gets connected. Men are the one who get connected to women, not the other way around. Right?
And in the process of lying to you is now going to take half of your retirement and feels that she deserves that because she lied to you. Now, here's the thing. Unfortunately, she has a vagina, which means she's going to go to court and she's going to fucking win.
There you go. And why is that, Burr? Well, for one thing, you're a perfect example. You don't even know what marriage entails. Right? And you are going to, and what do? You hold olive branches to these people who are against you. And now you're going to make excuses for them. And what are you going to do? You're going to tell this man to man up. Man up just means be a slave.
So what you have to do is get the fuck out of this. All right?
How's he going to get out of this if she has all the power and she's going to win? Run away is what he's saying.
Right? And all you have to do is work on, maintaining a positive relationship with your kids.
Really? So if she has all the power, which she does, and she can estrange him from his children and turn them against him, how is he going to maintain a positive relationship with them? Burr?
Never badmouth this cunt.
So she's a cunt to you, but don't badmouth her. Yeah. Don't take your God's name in vain. That's what he just said. Don't take your God's name in vain.
Okay? Never badmouth her to your kids. All right?
Even so, keep the facts out. So if the kids ask you why I don't see you anymore, Dad, he can't come out and say because Mom doesn't want me to see you. He can't be honest.
get older, they're going to figure.
Also, she can badmouth him, right? So uh, whenever these gender relationships come up, these guys always want men to fight with one hand tied behind their back, or in this case, both hands. Right? Now, look, he thinks the kids are going to figure it out, right?
Figure out who she is.
Well, sometimes they do, but the mother has to be exceptionally abusive. But if she's not, they're going to believe everything she says. There's all kinds of fathers who said, you know, my children think I'm scum because the mother brainwashed them. So this is more, what do you call it? Hyper agency on the man. The woman has all the power. She's screwing you over, but be a man and somehow alter reality. Burr, you're incredibly bitch made.
Okay. And, I don't know. Is she entitled to half your retirement?
Why are you asking? You got married, dipshit. Don't you know what Nia is entitled to? You bootlicker.
I don't know about that. I have no idea. But
Some woman just said yes, and so finally I stopped my angry comedy about women. Bill Burr is the incel everyone accuses the average guy standing up for himself as. Bill Burr bitched about women in his comedy because he was rejected. And as soon as a woman said yes, all of a sudden he turned it off, saying, I'm trying to become a better person and get over my anger issues. What an incel this guy is.
I know your kids are 11, 9, and 5. So you're going to have to pay child support for the next 13 years. And you just,
So you've got to? Right. So how is he going to maintain a good lifestyle with his kids? How's he going to do anything? He won't be able to own a car, you know? Once all the payments to her for spreading her legs to him once. This is why the woman lied to him for 15 years. It's a payout. It's a scheme, right? Her husband was her mark.
just going to have to man up and just realize that that's what you're going to have to do.
You see, this is why men have no rights. This is the attitude of the average guy. Man up and do what you have to do. In other words, accept your enslavement. These are the same guys who went through the American Revolution, right? These foreign men can't tell us what to do. We're our own country. But when it's the wife, it's 100% lay down, or in this case, bend over.
Okay. And she can take your half your retirement,
Yeah.
and she can take the house, and she can do all of that shit, but she can't take your happiness unless you let her.
Wow. This is a complete slave mindset. So she can take all the stuff you earned and loved, but that's all right because a female's doing it to you. Just get over it, right? Uh, you can be happy sleeping in that alley while the rain's coming down on you and scouring through the trash cans. You can be happy. Just don't let her get to you. Burr is such a punk.
And you can go out there as a 42-year-old, all right? And go out there and you can find a woman that actually is deserves you.
Holy shit. Just find another one. Dude, how's he going to take these new women on dates when he's dead broke? What if he ends up homeless? How is he going to get these good women? Is it good like your gal Nia, who treats you with complete contempt on your podcast? Hey, Burr, why don't you find a good woman?
Because this woman doesn't. And I'm sorry that this happened to you. And
No, no, see, so I'm saying, I'm sorry this happened to you. None of this, wow, this is an injustice, and we got to do something about it. There's never any talk about that because the average man is a slave to women. He knows it, he accepts it, and he's going to posture that he isn't that.
you know, I don't know. The only empathy I can have for this
I don't know. I don't know.
woman is maybe, society looks down on asexual people, so she
Okay, more excuse. What a punk. I wouldn't feel any empathy. I'm not going to feel empathy for a narcissist. I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of a narcissist and saying, if I was a narcissist, how would I go about just screwing people over for my own benefit? No, I don't think I'm going to do that kind of empathy.
felt she had to do this thing. I don't know, but the
No,
fact
no, she didn't feel like she had to do it. She wanted to do it to screw this guy. She never loved him. What a bootleg.
that she's fucking angry at you is ridiculous. She owes you an
No, no, it's hateful, not ridiculous. Hateful and evil.
apology. Um,
She owes you an apology. Oh, well, you're so harsh, Burr. She lied to him for 15 years and screwing him over. But dude, she owes you an apology.
unless, you're some overbearing son of a bitch. And I mean, I can't tell that in your email. I have no fucking idea. But if you're just being a husband and you're thinking she's loving you and enjoying it,
Well, it all depends. Is he lying? We can't really tell, but how many guys go on the internet and tell a fake story like this just for shits and giggles? All right.
and having sex with you, I don't know. I'm not even convinced that she's fucking asexual. Okay?
You might be right about that. But she's definitely not interested in having sex with this guy.
Maybe she is. But, when you fucking get out of this thing, if you decide to, because, listen, I'm not an expert on
Expert, you know nothing about what you're talking about. How's he going to get out of this? Dude, suppose she doesn't want him to see his children. It's not up to him. You just admitted she's going to go into court and she's going to win. She's got all the cards.
this shit. I'm just fucking this is just barroom fucking advice. All right?
Which is useless to men because all you told him to do was take it like a little bitch, like you are.
Right? Brace yourself that there's another guy. There's a possibility of that. But what you are in, the way you have described it, is
Well, she will bang other men when she feels like it. That's a fact. Matter of fact, she might have even been seeing a guy while he was being frozen out.
fucking winnable. Like when you just a team just realized like we're not going to win a championship this year, and they just dump all their stars. This is what you got to do. You just got to pack it in. You ain't winning.
That's a shitty analogy. In order for the analogy to be correct, they would have to be a favorite team and they would have to follow rules, and the other team would be allowed to cheat. Then you say, oh, wow, the other team cheated the whole game and won again. I guess we're not going to win this year.
Winning the title this year, but 42 is plenty of time to turn this whole fucking thing around.
Dust yourself off and continue. Yeah, turn around. Like, it's really easy to bribe a new wife into your life when you're paying child support and living in your car. Also, you're saying, who cares about the children? If he's going to find a new woman, then she's going to be the new center, which means you're admitting Burr as a husband that you don't give a shit about children either. It's all about the female worship. Okay. Now, I know you guys can't see this, but I looked up about, what was it? I asked the question to Google. It said, is lack of sex a reason not to get divorced or a reason for divorce? And of course, they said no at first, but what it is, they use different language for women, right? They use the word, let's see, I'll describe one. Oh, yeah, constructive abandonment. They use the term constructive abandonment. So if a woman's not getting laid by a man, let's say you have the odd case where wife is interested in sex with the man and the man's not interested. They won't say, "Hey, she deserves sex," because then husbands could use it for them. So they say, "Oh, it's constructive abandonment." They say this includes withhold sex, is emotionally neglectful. That could be anything, right? Is physically or emotionally abusive, is unfaithful, right? Withholds financial support. Now, that is strictly a one-way street from the man to the woman. Is emotionally distant. Doesn't listen to their partner. So this is all one way for the husband. Okay? This is all for the husband. This will never be considered for the man. So I just want to let you know that. Now, we'll get into this bullshit. Divorce. Why are fewer marriages ending? And while they tell you outright, it's because fewer people are getting married. Fewer women are getting married. That's why. So let's hear this.
Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings from the BBC World Service. This is The Global Story. They say that breaking up is hard to do, and that seems to be particularly true in many Western countries, where divorce rates have been steadily falling for the last few decades. But why? On today's episode, we look at some of the main reasons people decide to get divorced, or never get married at all. We consider the effect.
When she says people, she means women. They're going to admit that women majority initiate divorce. As Eric Sheedler said again and again, women get married knowing they're going to get divorced.
Effects on families, finances, and emotional well-being at a time that some people say is the most stressful in life. With me today is Joanna Gosling, a long-time BBC journalist and presenter who now works as a mediator for couples considering divorce. And
by the way, all the people she talks to are going to be women. And people in the comments, being gullible like they are, said, "How come there are no men in here?" And I said, "I'm glad there weren't any men." Because any man that gets brought in knows his place, or is an Andrew Tate type that they can demonize. There's no such thing as a man having his say, ever. So I'm glad they just stuck with women.
Marina Adshade, who is a professor at the Vancouver School of Economics and regularly contributes to BBC programmes. Lovely to have you both with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to be here.
Joanna, you sadly left us here at the BBC to pursue a career in mediation. But why did you choose to work in what must at times be really acrimonious, really tense, that environment, working with couples who are divorcing?
Yes.
It's not tense for her. She's working to make sure the woman gets everything. She loves doing this job.
It obviously can be high conflict. It is high conflict. It's dealing with people at the most difficult time of their lives often. But I do it because I really care about supporting people through those difficult times and
making sure the wife gets everything.
Getting them as much as I can through to the other side so that they can put it behind them and, live their life, a new life, a changed life, but as they want.
In other words, the wife get rid of the husband and then she can get on with a better life. One where he pays while she doesn't have to deal with him anymore.
It to be.
And Marina, you're at the Vancouver School of Economics. Now, what's that got to do with divorce?
Yeah, so I'm an unusual economist. I work.
What does economics have to do with divorce? Well, the marriage slave contract is all about wealth. It always has been. Always has been.
On the economics of sex and love. I've been doing this, going back like 15 years when I decided to teach economics.
Sex and love, and we'll talk about economics. Right.
Course on sex and love for my students just to get them interested in economics. And it's kind of snowballed from there. So the issues that we're going to be talking about today, I've been working on for a long time. And it is absolutely an economic story because
marriage is an economic story. Thank you for admitting that. You see, that's why I'm glad Eric showed me this video. Because he said outright, this is just proof that marriage is all about wealth, a wealth transfer. It's about women getting divorced, right? Is they're putting their time in, right, to get what they want.
We know that economics has a big role to play in why people both marry and divorce. But
This people, she says women, right? Men get married because they want the woman around. So the economics she's talking about is women.
also because economists have been working on this going back to the 1970s, these issues of why people marry, why people divorce.
We're going to delve into a lot of these issues, but I was surprised to hear that in Western countries, divorce rates are actually on the decline. Why do you think that is, Marina?
Fewer people are getting married.
Well, there you go. It's not thinking, that's the answer. Because women don't want to be married to men in the first place. They never did.
People getting married when they're older. People who marry when they're older are more likely to stay married. So this is going to play a big role in it. We
What's she saying there? When they're older, in other words, when the man has built up enough wealth that the woman's willing to tolerate him for a longer time.
seen a big change in what I call marriage equality.
But also, she's not including gray divorces. You know what those are? That's when the wife decides to divorce him once retirement has come. Once his income becomes fixed, that's when she puts out the divorce papers, right? So even the ones that remain longer is not a guarantee of anything. Matter of fact, it is a guarantee. It just means it guarantees that the divorce is going to be prolonged or staved off for a while.
Where it used to be that people who were educated and had high incomes married at roughly the same rate as the people who had lower incomes and less education, but that's really changed. So now we're seeing mostly educated people getting married relative to people who have less education.
In other words, guys. When she says people, she means guys. Yeah, poor men can't afford the bride price. Women used to shack up with them because they wanted them to do the grunt labor, right? Now women get nice, easy jobs. They don't need these guys. They're dumping them, right? Or in this case, not even getting together with them in the first place.
Those people tend to stay married, right? So a lot of it has to do with the composition of who is marrying today.
That's the West, but if you look at countries like India and China, we're seeing divorce rates go up.
I'm actually not surprised that divorce rates appear to be increasing in those countries because those countries that are at a different stage of development than men.
Yeah, they're catching up, right? They're going into the phase that we Westerners were earlier. This is it. There's the women using men when they really need us for the heavy lifting. Then they get to the heavy divorce, and then they'll eventually catch up to us and do the I'm not getting married to you in the first place stage.
Many of the countries in the West. And we did see an increase in divorce rates, say, over the 20th century, right? So you saw an increase in divorce rates and then a decline. And you would expect in countries like India and China, you would have the same pattern.
There was an interesting thing they did in China where they introduced this cooling off period.
Mm-hmm. Notice how happy all these women are talking about this. You know why they're happy? Because they like it as the way it is. If this was a really big issue, this one wouldn't be smiling all the time.
So the government...
They're happy because they know they're getting everything they want. Everything. And the man gets nothing. That's part of what they want. Making sure the man gets nothing. It's not that simply that they succeed, but the man fails.
Enforce this. Does that work when the government intervenes?
If nothing changes in the dynamic between two people, being told that they've got to cool off and wait a bit longer, I don't think is going to make them suddenly realise that they want to be together. It might be an idea for states to invest in communication programs for these couples, because that's
communications programs. So when the communications turn out that the wife says, I hate this guy and I never liked him, I mean, how is that going to change things, lady? Right? Also, communications mean like the man doesn't communicate. He doesn't submit enough.
invariably why relationships fall apart. And so unless something shifts in that regard, as I say, being told that you've got to stay in it a bit longer for whatever reason isn't going to probably change anyone's mind.
Marina, what about India? Because historically divorce is very low in India, but we are starting to see an increase.
So, historically in India, many
There's a bunch of married people there. That's why. And the women are ready to ditch their men. That's all that's going on here.
many marriages were arranged marriages. If you go back to even to the 1990s, more than 90%.
This is interesting because they used to brag up how arranged marriages actually lasted longer than marriages that weren't. The reason why they arranged it, because they arranged the wife for the highest status man they could find. She couldn't go anywhere else unless she decided to be single and work for a living, which she doesn't want to do. Well, now India's catching up, actually has caught up. A lot of these women are getting into, actual like computer engineering or whatever, and they're ditching their men, right?
Of her marriages were arranged marriages. And arranged marriages do have a tendency to have a significantly lower divorce rate. I mean, that might be because, in an arranged marriage, people recognize that they have to work harder to work.
This is funny. Like they show a couple, but what they show her face, this beautiful woman, you see her face talking, and this guy, you just see his profile. That's a perfect example of a marriage. She's the star and he's her little servant boy.
Work on that communication and forming that bond. Or it could just be that they come from more traditional families where divorce isn't really an option. So we've seen a decline in
So once marriage becomes an option, women do it. Thank you for admitting that.
arranged marriages in India. And at the same time, you start seeing an increase in divorce. I don't actually see divorce as a bad thing or even an increase.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for admitting again. They're letting us know right to our faces. She doesn't see divorce as a bad thing because divorce is her getting something out of it's the final stage to the scheme, right? If women were getting screwed over, she would see divorce as a bad thing.
Increase in divorce as a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot of people in the West when divorce became easier in the late 1970s and early 1980s. There was a rush to divorce at that point because people were in deeply unhappy marriages, and it gave them a chance to get.
Well, the wife was, right? The husband was too, but he was willing to put up with his unhappiness to have the woman around, not the other way, not the woman for the guy.
Out of those marriages. There's research that's being done in the States that says that access to divorce has saved the lives of thousands of women. And I'm guessing in India,
She just let it out. It's not people. All of a sudden, the gender neutral term disappeared. Women. Divorce saved women because otherwise they might have had to stay with the guys she never wanted to be with in the first place, right?
it's exactly the same.
Women in South Asia
She couldn't complete her con game.
often talk about the shame or the stigma that was attached to divorce. And Imran Khan's ex-wife, Reham Khan, talked about the view of divorced women in Pakistan.
When a woman gets divorced, I think it's very
Oh my God, this woman's gorgeous. She doesn't even look like she's Pakistani. Okay, what was this marriage about? Is your husband filthy rich? And you got it.
easy for our community to then jump on the bandwagon and demonize her. But the woman doesn't have to be a criminal to be going through a divorce, or becoming a divorcee is almost.
Because in the past, the man got something out of it. That's why they got on your case. And also you were signaling to men that women didn't like their husbands. The idea, the demonization is that you've got to wear your mask. You can't complete the con artist game if you let the mask slip. That's what they're worried about.
Almost like a license for anyone to just start maligning the woman.
Joanna, what would be your view on that? That now, do you think there is still a sense?
Also, the parents of the girl would say, we don't want to have to look after you. That's why you got married in the first place. You're someone else's burden. So why are you getting divorced? Now we're going to have to take care of you.
Of shame that people feel or a stigma around being divorced?
I think it would depend on different societies, because there will be, obviously, as we've been hearing, different cultural pressures to, first of all, get married and stay married, and then the societal pressures, and even in countries where divorce is accepted and there sort of shouldn't be a shame or a stigma. I think that just anecdotally people often do still feel that.
Marina, how much of it?
Well, they'll only feel that way in countries where women really need men to do the heavy lifting. So it's neither here nor there. As soon as the countries become like India and move on up, the women don't have that fear anymore. So it's not an issue for women.
Change is there, though, because people in the West particularly are getting married later.
People are looking for something different in marriage. And, I think that love is...
No, that's a lie. Women are looking for the exact same things they always were. And they get it.
Is way more important part of marriage now than it was in the past. And so people marry later. They wait until they find somebody that they're really compatible with.
No. The woman, she enjoys herself and finds herself a good mark. She finds the man who has the highest status before she's willing to say yes.
They wait and find somebody who's going to be their best friend and is going to be a good parent and is going to fulfill all of those.
If they cared about a guy being a good parent, why would they then make him pay child support? Why would they boot him out of the family? Right? So that's a lie.
Needs. And because of that, people are more likely to stay married because they are choosing more carefully.
We've been talking about divorce rates falling in the West. They're climbing in the Middle East. Egypt's have more than doubled since the process was made easier for women in 2000. And in a country like Kuwait, more than half of marriages are ending in divorce. That's a rate that's higher than America's.
Yeah, exactly. They're all catching up. As soon as they catch up, the women show their true colors. They never wanted to be with their men, period.
And Marina, I wanted to ask you about the pattern of divorce now, whether that's changing. In these countries, are we actually seeing it's the women who are often initiating?
I think this is largely always being true.
There you go. They're admitting it again. The women are in the majority initiating it because they're the ones who never wanted to be married to the man. They wanted marriage for what it was giving them, but they never wanted to be with the man. And they're admitting it. Thank you.
But certainly all the areas that we have data from, it's women are way more likely to initiate a divorce. Women are more likely to initiate.
Thank you, Eric. Again, women get married knowing they're going to get divorced.
And then when they're surveyed later, they're more likely to say that they were glad they got divorced. Men are much more likely to say they regret the divorce.
There you go. Thank you for it. So you've just admitted the differences between the genders. The men want to be with the woman. She doesn't want to be with him. That's why he regrets it. That's the number one reason. The other reasons of him paying child support and being estranged from the kids, that's there too, but that's all secondary. The man will put up with any amount of abuse to be with the woman.
So it seems to be women's choices.
Thank you again. Oh my God, this is a perfect
that are
video.
driving a lot of divorce. Of course, this isn't universally true, but it's true for something like 70% of all divorces.
Well, there you go. It's the majority. So it says something about the genders.
Let's dig a bit deeper into why people are getting divorced and what makes divorce more likely. Marina, there must be this breaking point moment for many people. What do you think are the issues that can lead up to that moment?
Personally, I think that one of the main reasons where
Well, the wife sees it's time. That's the breaking point. Because she got married knowing that she's going to get divorced. So she decides when, right? Like that Bill Burr case, the woman said, well, I got 3 children to this guy. They're the right age. They're old enough that I can send them off to school, but they're young enough that I can use them as hostages. So that was her decision.
people get divorced, is that they have had a
Why are they using gender neutral terms again? People. They just admit that women are the ones that initiate divorce in the majority, so they should be saying women and wives.
significant change in circumstances. And they might have had the ideal arrangement at the time that they got married, but over the course of people's lives, things change. And I think this is true for a lot of
No, they didn't have the ideal. That was the beginning of the con. And the breaking point is when the con reaches its fruition, right? The scam.
marriages because people's situation changes over their lives. Maybe they want children and maybe they change their minds. Maybe they want to live in one location and the other person doesn't want to live in that location. And I think it's those things that are just very difficult to resolve where it no longer becomes the arrangement that people entered into originally.
You're nodding a lot, Joanne.
Yeah, and a lot of what I come across is people whose children are that bit older and they'll suddenly be like, we have just been focused on the children and focused on everything else and not focusing on each other. And then there's that moment where it's just like, actually, what is there
Well, isn't that the point of having children? That you're supposed to focus on them? Don't the children finally grow up and leave anyway? Right.
left between us? And that's when the divorce, will often hit.
What about the financial entanglement? How problematic can that be during the divorce? And how
The fear for the man.
much is that also a reason that people choose to stay together?
Often people do choose to stay together because it is extremely difficult to.
Well, the guys say cheaper to keep her. For the woman, it's I might have to get a job.
Suddenly split the pot to sustain 2 households, and then working out how you split up things when it's material assets often, but they have an enormous emotional pull.
Marina, I feel like I know about prenups from watching too much American TV growing up, but are they becoming more common?
I always tell my classes of students, if you get married, you should have a prenup. And they really, this
Right. Men should. And yet at the same time, it's a waste of time. Because judges often throw the prenups up. So any promise a woman makes is not going to be upheld by the legal system. So it's a waste of time.
really surprises them. But, it's a big economic decision. It's a big financial decision to get married. And it makes sense to enter into a marriage.
Really, I thought you said it was all about love now. So you're admitting marriage between the relationships between men and women is prostitution. Right.
Having some type of contract in place about what happens if that marriage is dissolved. So they are becoming far more common. There's also big variations around the world on to how assets are shared. So for example, in a lot of places, the assets you bring into the
Well, the woman tells you her money is hers and his money is ours. That's a very old saying. That's before I was born. There you go.
marriage you're allowed to take out of the marriage.
Statistically, Marina, are there other factors that mean a couple is more likely to get divorced?
One of the big determinants of whether or not people divorce is whether or not there's a big age gap. So once you get beyond 6 years, they have an increased risk of divorce. Another
There you go, guys. This is why DiCaprio never wipes up these women. If the bigger the age gap, the more likely the divorce. In other words, the wife The woman was looking at an older man who built up enough equity that he could bribe her. Right. So all these older couples, like older men with younger women, those old guys deserve what they get because they know it from the get-go, right? They have to be delusional each and every day. They got to double think like 1984, right?
Other thing that increases divorce is cross-cultural marriages have a tendency to have
Passport bros, cross-cultural. In other words, some woman accepted the bribe because it was big enough, but the bribe might have been also the fact that the man was a stepping stone to a first world country. A third world woman marries a first world man, and she's just biding her time that she can get rid of him and stay in that first world. That's what this woman's leaving out too.
higher divorce rates. I think possibly because they don't get the same level of familial support.
Does the length of the marriage make a difference?
People in their 30s are less likely to get divorced than people in their 40s. People in their 50s are actually more likely to get divorced. And then after that, it starts to taper off. So I think there is really a very strong children growing up phenomenon.
And if you've been married more than once, twice, three
Can
times,
I slap that smug ass grin off your face? Just asking.
does that make, does that make it more likely that you're going to divorce?
The probability of divorce, if it's your second marriage or it's your third marriage, is much higher. And actually, it's also true that if people have not just been married, but have had like multiple cohabitating relationships.
How does divorce, it's a very general question, obviously, but how does it affect children?
Researching
Well, the wife doesn't give a shit.
people who are now adults and the impact of their own parents' divorce on them, the damage is often caused where children don't get to make the choices. Life is completely changing. And if they're not heard in that and they don't feel that they've got autonomy, that's really where the damage can set in. You might remember Gwyneth Paltrow, Chris Martin talking about conscious uncoupling. And the reason that they wanted to do it that way was so that they really could do the best for their children in terms of saying, okay, this is going to be different, but we're going to work together to make sure that it's as comfortable as it can be for you.
Joanna, you raised it before I could. Conscious uncoupling. Do people come to you and use that phrase? Is it?
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, he practices that. He practices conscious uncoupling, but he's demonized for it. You know, this bullshit about women being demonized in these other countries, men are the one who get demonized, right? DiCaprio never made any promises to the women he gets together with, yet people are pissed off that he is, as a free man, he does what a free man supposedly is allowed to do.
Something that has sort of taken off as an idea, or has it been beneficial?
I am not sure how much of an idea, how much it has taken off as an idea, actually. I think when they were getting divorced and they were talking about it, there was quite a lot of derision around it. And, you know, we're talking about societal expectations, cultural expectations around marriage. There are also those around divorce and what divorce looks like and how divorce is portrayed in the media and the high-profile couples that we see having very difficult divorces. It is an enormous shift to say, okay, let's have those good conversations. Let's really put this family at the centre of everyone's care on this.
Do you think some of these high-profile divorces kind of skew the conversation at times as well?
It's interesting because people have this perception that, you know, very wealthy people or celebrities or Hollywood stars are more likely to get divorced than everybody else, but they're actually less likely to get divorced than everybody else.
What about?
I'm glad she said that, right? Because the men often have the fame and wealth to keep the wife around. That doesn't mean she doesn't turn off the sex like that loser that we heard at the first. It just means she's willing to tolerate sharing space with the guy.
About the rise in divorce in some countries which have...
But also it kills the coping. Like when you see all these, celebrity divorces, people would look at them and say, oh, it's because something's wrong with them. They're not indicative of what marriage actually is. And now these women are shutting that down. They're saying, no, these celebrity divorces are indicative of what the average person goes through.
Been a bit more oppressive in the past. Has it been liberating for women?
It has been extremely good, and it's been.
See, is it liberating for women? You say this is between men and women. The men don't count. These women are saying it again. And it's liberating for women because women have all the cards. They get everything out of it. The man gets zero, the woman gets everything.
Extremely good for women to be able to leave relationships where they're in abusive situations or oppressive situations, or they just don't have the autonomy.
And of course, she does this horseshit, abusive relationships. But you're talking about the majority of women leaving marriages. Marriage is almost non-existent. So is every man an abusive person? No. So keep your bullshit to yourself.
That we would expect women to have in our societies. The numbers of women's lives that have been saved by the change to more accessible divorce is staggering.
Marina, if there are listeners out there who are considering a divorce, what would be your
Well, women are considering divorce. They always do. Right.
best piece of advice?
One of the things that I've always really struggled with is the idea that a successful marriage is the one that ends when somebody dies. And I actually would love it if we could just move away from that and recognize that you can have successful marriages.
Yeah, a successful marriage is when the woman reams over the man. You said that's a successful marriage. She's not lying. Right? She doesn't want the man dying when he still can provide. That's bottom tier. Divorce is top tier. That's when the woman gets everything. And part of everything is saying, ha ha ha, to her husband's face. In your face, dude.
That end in divorce, right? That you build lives together, you had families together.
Yep, you build up everything. He built up everything. You get to take it all and see him suffer. That's an important part of this divorce. She gets to see the man suffer. Let's see. We don't need the last 3 minutes, whatever, 2 minutes. I've made my point. Now I got to think of an appropriate title because this is what it is. Women marry knowing they're going to get divorced. They see divorce as a good thing because they get everything out of it. They get everything out of the marriage, and the divorce is the culmination of the scam, of the con. That's what marriage is.